The pathway back to your wife's heart is filled with unforeseen obstacles that will send you backwards toward isolation and despair if you don't listen to what I'm about to say. Staying calm during heated emotional storms, learning to lead with grounded masculine energy, all of that matters. But there's one obstacle you can't see. It's invisible, like a crack in the foundation of your marriage that you might not even notice until it's too late. That obstacle works as a hidden virus, slowly telling lies to you that cause your wife to continue to lose respect, attraction, and love. It is known as the misalignment principle. And in this video, I will show you how to overcome this principle with the power of authentic alignment to melt her ice cold heart, rebuild trust, and unlock her affection again. This includes a simple daily exercise I'll give you at the end to go from disconnected and second guessing yourself to becoming a fully aligned magnetic force of confidence, the kind of man who naturally commands respect and stays on her mind long throughout the day, even after he leaves the room. So let's jump in. If you're familiar with my channel, then you've likely heard the concept called congruence. Now, there are two types of congruence that will damage your status in your wife's eyes. We will go over them today, but to give you a base understanding, incongruence is when there is a misalignment in someone. There is no through line in who they are and how they express themselves. In this video, you'll discover how and why the silent force has been eroding your wife's respect, a simple yet powerful way to regain that respect and rebuild trust, the key to unlocking her affection and reigniting intimacy in your relationship, and a step-by-step framework to clear out the cobwebs of insecurity and rebuild your confidence to become the steady, grounded man that she can't help but be drawn to. And it starts with identifying the root of the problem, the infectious disconnect that's been quietly chipping away at your marriage like a slow, relentless tide of eroding just that solid foundation you once had, and why it's been holding you back. Number one is misalignment in the marriage. So misalignment or incongruence is when there's a gap between who you claim to be and how you show up. It isn't just about big and obvious mistakes. It's in the small inconsistencies. Saying I love you but then dismissing her emotions. Claiming to value her but ignoring her needs. Wanting to be the leader but waiting for her to take charge. Claiming that you'll prioritize the family but constantly scrolling through your phone during family time. Claiming to be trustworthy but breaking small promises like saying you'll pick up something on the way home and then forgetting. Or even watching hours of self-improvement content but never applying it in your real life.
Remember that love needs action, trust needs proof, and sorry, that needs change.
And I hope that's not the case with this video, by the way. When you are out of alignment, it creates a ripple effect that makes her feel uncertain and unsafe. Think about aligning your car tires. Every car owner has to do this. And if you don't, several issues can arise. Misaligned tires can cause the car to drift, making it harder to steer. That is a perfect description of your marriage. Your inconsistency shows a lack of leadership, which forces her to overcompensate, which builds resentment. It increases strain. You see, misalignment forces the engine to work harder, burning more fuel and wearing down faster. So in the marriage, it creates unnecessary tension, draining both you emotionally and her, and making the relationship feel like more of a struggle than a partnership. And it has long-term damage. Ignoring alignment issues damages not just the tires, but the entire vehicle, leading to constant repairs. And in the marriage, the longer it's left unchecked, the harder it is to rebuild and repair. When your wife senses the gap, she can't trust you, not because you're malicious, but because you're not consistent. That is from G.S. Youngblood's book, The Masculine in Relationship. In it, he hammers home the inconsistency that erodes trust. There's even a study backing this up called Incongruent Behavior, Understanding Mismatched Actions and Thoughts. And this research shows that even little mismatches between what you say and what you can do, it creates tension and stress in the relationship, leaving both partners feeling uncertain and disconnected. Now, there are two levels of congruence that I mentioned earlier. There's micro and macro congruence. When we talk about being authentically aligned, it's important to understand that it operates on two levels, on the micro and the macro. Now, microcongruence is about alignment between a person's thoughts, emotions, and actions. For example, a guy might feel upset because his wife did something that bothered him, but he's afraid to speak his mind because he doesn't want to upset her. So he feels the emotion of being upset, but thinks, I can't say anything, and then takes no action, resulting in an internal misalignment that chips away at his confidence and connection with her. On the macro level, on the other hand, it's about alignment between values, boundaries, and actions on a bigger conceptual level. So as an example, let's say a man values honesty, but when his wife lies to him about something, he doesn't address it or express how it violates his boundaries. Even though the scenario might feel similar, it's deeper because it's about how his actions fail to honor his core values and uphold the boundaries and reflecting who he is as a man. Understanding these two levels is critical because incongruence at either level can quietly erode both trust and attraction in a relationship. But as you may have guessed, when you close the gap and rebuild alignment, she begins to feel safer, more connected, and more open to trusting you again. To make that happen, we gotta uncover how you became misaligned in the first place. What exactly is causing it, and how to fix it for good. The second part of this is the quiet undoing, how misalignment begins. Let's go back to when you've really fallen out of alignment. These subtle, inconsistent behaviors of yours feel insignificant in the moment. They often stem from a deeper issue though.
Do you think I'm afraid?
I think you've been afraid all your life.
Fear is a powerful, invisible force that drives a lot of our actions, and it can undermine our authenticity. For men, this fear often shows up as avoiding uncomfortable situations, like facing rejection, failure, or even taking a hard look at ourselves. For most men, it's the fear of losing her. Look, you don't want to imagine a life without her. You're so afraid of showing up with who you really are and how you really feel. But that inevitably, she senses that, and she loses all respect because of it. And the result of that is a man who's out of alignment with himself, and by extension, with his wife or his partner. I wanted to share a comment on my YouTube channel about this. The guy says, a huge incongruence we have is internal gaslighting. Our values are not aligned with our actions, but we tell ourselves, or even convince ourselves they are. My biggest failure is not owning my life. I am afraid to own my life in my authenticity out of fear of being rejected and abandoned. This is my biggest gate to walk through. This fear doesn't just lead to avoiding hard conversations or holding back emotions. It also shows up as people pleasing. You can become the yes man, bending over backwards in every direction just to cater to her wants and needs. But here's the deal, she actually doesn't want that. And yet despite this, you still see yourself as the man and the leader of the marriage. But where's the authentic alignment in that? You see, fear keeps you stuck in this cycle, convincing you that avoiding conflict will somehow keep the peace. But in reality, it's creating even more distance. In my interview with one of my clients, Travis, he speaks about how he overcame this fear.
And I think a lot of it stems from just letting go of expectations.
Right.
Letting go of those fears, going into the unknown and being okay with it, being okay with who you are as a person. And whatever comes out of it, whatever, is the path, I'm okay with that.
And that's the place you must get to be okay with who you are as a person and okay with whatever comes out of this. You're gonna be okay. You are. Know that within yourself, not just some guy on their YouTube telling you. Look within yourself and know that. Because authentic misalignment can also come from complacency or simply losing focus on what matters most. Let's hear from another one of my clients, Brian.
I felt like my kids were watching me not be a man. I knew I was falling out of sorts. I knew I wasn't the badass dude that I was when I married her. And I'm like, my kids are watching me. I'm getting resentful. My shoulders are lower. I'm not working out. My belly's bigger. I'm defeated. This is not happening. I'm not doing this. This is not my kids are not going to see this as an example. This is not going to happen. And that's where I was getting wrapped up in, if she doesn't, come around, I'm not going to stand here and just be treated like this and then have, this poor example for the kids to see.
Brian recognized that his complacency and loss of focus were not just affecting his relationship, they were setting a poor example for his kids. He saw how his physical and emotional defeat, neglecting his health, losing his confidence, and letting resentment take over was chipping away at the man he once was. Refusing to stay in that defeated state, he decided to reclaim his strength and realign with the man he wanted to be for himself and his family. Now, before we dive into how to overcome fear and complacency, there's something else you might be overlooking: the subtle but powerful way misalignment impacts her. I mentioned eroding trust, but I want to dig a little bit deeper here also, and why it affects your chances of intimacy with her as well. This is why misalignment hurts more than you think. She notices the small things. Women have a sharp intuition for inconsistency, even in the minor of actions. This is because biologically and socially, they're often more attuned to emotional and social cues between people. Throughout evolution, women develop this heightened awareness as a way to protect themselves and their families. Being able to pick up on subtle changes in behavior or trustworthiness helps ensure safety and stability for both themselves and the kids. It's called the trust deficit. When your actions don't align with your words, it sends mixed signals in who you are. Subconsciously, she starts wondering, if I can't count on him in these little things, how can I trust him in the big ones? And who he is as a man. This is not being critical. It's her way of making sure she feels emotionally safe with you. After a series of arguments about the relationship, Brooke asked Gary to bring home lemons for a centerpiece. He brushes us off as unimportant and brings home the wrong thing. The small act symbolizes a pattern. Gary consistently fails to follow through on the little things that shows he cares and is paying attention. Brooke's frustration isn't about the lemons, it's about how these small missteps or inconsistencies represent a larger disconnect or a lack of alignment in the relationship. So, your wife may test you once more and again subconsciously through criticism or offhand comments expressing her frustration in so many different ways. There's a whole video on testing that you can check out at the end of this one that goes over how to pass those tests, by the way. But overall, here's the thing. When she points out these inconsistencies, it's not about tearing you down. It's oftentimes her highlighting areas that she wants you to grow on so she feels safe. Start to see her feedback not as criticism or jabbing or stabbing or poison, but as her belief in your potential to be the man that you're capable of becoming. This shift in perspective can completely transform how you respond and in turn, how she feels. It's not perfection she's looking for, it's authentic alignment. It shows her that you're dependable, grounded, present. Now the question is, how does this relate to intimacy? Because when alignment falters, attraction fades. And attraction in marriage is built on authenticity, confidence, and certainty. When that alignment falters, you lose that authenticity, that confidence that drew her to you in the first place. Imagine a chair that looks sturdy but collapses when you sit on it because it's made out of cheap materials. What seemed reliable was actually hollow. That's how your misalignment feels to her. So over time, without her sense of safety, trust begins to fade. When trust is gone, emotional and physical connection naturally follow. Now I want to share a story that helps to illustrate this. You see, Philip was frustrated. Once again, his wife rejected his attempt to rekindle the intimacy in their marriage. Seriously, what will it take? He mumbled under his breath, running a hand through his hair. I'm sorry, she said, turning away as they lay on the bed. It's just been a stressful day. Are things okay between us? He asked, his voice uncertain, almost pleading. Yeah, she replied after an awkwardly long pause, though the hesitation hung in the air like a weight. Their marriage had been on the rocks for months. Philip has poured his energy into positive changes, hitting the gym again, spending more time with the kids, things he knew he neglected for so long. On paper, he felt like he was doing just everything right, but tension lingered between them. They still argued too often. It always came back to the same patterns of him saying one thing and then doing another. He said, I'm trying, I'm doing my best, but to her, it was defensive. He promised to be more present, but his phone was never far away. He vowed to stay calm in disagreements, but his frustration bubbled over on the smallest of slights. Philip was doing the physical work, but he never went inside. He was blind to the work that required him to face his own emotions, his fears, the parts of himself he'd been avoiding for years. He sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. A part of him wondered if he'd already lost her, or worse, if he's losing himself. Now, before I finish Philip's story, could you spot how he was misaligned? This is how incongruence kills polarity. Number one is seeking validation. When you seek validation, it shows that you don't believe in yourself and your own value. You want to lead and provide security, but your actions show you're relying on her for emotional support. This mismatch, it creates a gap that you're asking for her to play a role to help almost be your mother. This is the first area that Philip struggled with. His peace of mind was reliant on how his wife was feeling about him. Now, the way this impacted polarity, it reversed the roles, draining her attraction because it put her in an emotional leadership role, which disrupted the natural masculine-feminine dynamic. She's no longer able to relax into her feminine energy because she's busy reassuring and stabilizing him. Number two is emotional overreaction. The way that it relates to incongruency is that reacting defensively or with anger when she points out just flaws or signals of insecurity, you may claim to value growth or feedback, but overreaction shows that you can't handle criticism. So that inconsistency is saying that you want to improve, but your actions don't back it up. That's the second area that Philip struggled with. He didn't do the inner work to keep calm and be her shore. The way that it affected polarity was that a man who is emotionally reactive, she feels unsafe. She can't trust him to remain steady under pressure, which forces her to guard herself emotionally. Without emotional safety, polarity fades because she no longer feels that she can lean into you as her anchor. Now, the third one is avoiding responsibility. The way it relates to incongruency is that claiming to be a leader but avoiding tough conversations or decisions creates a clear disconnect. Saying you want to be the one to guide the relationship, but waiting for her to take the reins shows a lack of follow-through. This incongruence between wanting respect but avoiding responsibility, it creates frustration and erodes trust. And the way it impacts polarity is that when she has to take charge, whether it's in finances, parenting, or planning, it disrupts the natural masculine-feminine balance. She feels forced into her masculine role, which can lead to resentment and exhaustion. Now, polarity relies on you stepping up and not stepping back. These behaviors destroy polarity by creating a gap between who you say you are and how you actually show up. Polarity thrives when she trusts your ability to lead, which starts with aligning your words and your actions. So what happened with Philip? He decided enough was enough. Sitting on the edge of his bed that night, staring at the floor, he realized he'd been putting all his focus on the surface level changes. Hitting the gym, spending time with the kids, trying to be more present. It's all great, but ignoring the deeper work that he needed to do. So he sought professional help with a coach in his corner. He began to notice how often he looked to his wife for reassurance, waiting for her validation instead of leading himself. He started to recognize the pattern, seeking her approval in small ways, avoiding tough conversations and brushing off his own emotions as not a big deal. But what hit him the hardest was realizing that these behaviors weren't just pushing her away. They were keeping him from becoming the man he thought he always was, the Philip 2.0 he wanted to be. Slowly but consistently, he started rebuilding his own sense of self-worth. It wasn't an overnight transformation, but it began with the small steps. Journaling to understand his emotions, setting boundaries with his phone, and owning up to the positive promises that he once broke. That's what was most important. For the first time in months, he felt a spark of something that he hasn't felt in a long time. It was clarity. The third most important thing is to turn disconnection to harmony is aligning your actions. Now, authentic alignment feels like finding the exact puzzle piece that fits a sense of completeness and harmony with the bigger picture of your life. Fear keeps you stuck and complacency makes you drift. But with self-awareness, courage, and consistency, you can realign with you, regaining trust in your marriage and reclaiming trust in yourself. So let's finish the puzzle. Step number 1, you can't fix what you don't see. The first step is to recognize where your actions have drifted from your values. This is about honest reflection, not self-judgment. The practical steps here are to identify core values. Write down your top 3 core values, whether they're honesty, integrity, doesn't matter. Write them all down and notice them. Number 2, spot incongruence. List recent actions that contradict those examples of those values. So as an example, if you have honesty as your value, but you know you lied to yourself, made promises you couldn't keep, you're going against your values. Number 3, reflect on the impact. Ask yourself, if my son or daughter saw this behavior, or they knew I was this way, would I want them to see me that way? Would I want my kids to be this way? The next thing to do is to have the courage to act. You see, self-awareness is useless without action. This step is about moving through fear and complacency by taking deliberate, aligned actions, even when they're uncomfortable. Start small. Identify one action that scares you, but aligns with your values. Secondly, reclaim your role as the leader. Fear and complacency erodes leadership. Take ownership in the areas you've let slide. Example, plan a family activity. Take charge, plan everything out, and then take the lead and go do it. The third thing is to visualize your success. Write down exactly in detail what the future looks like. Use your emotions. Think of that perfect day and write it out like a diary entry. Moment by moment, use as much detail as possible. And then step number 3 is consistency over time. Consistency creates trust, not just with her, but with yourself. Small daily actions build momentum and restore alignment in a sustainable way. Make sure you have your values in front of you, whether on your phone screen, on your computer. Recognize and see them every day. Track your progress. Set achievable goals for yourself and make sure you are measuring them every day. And then celebrate small wins with yourself. Notice the wins within yourself, because once you put wins within yourself, you build self-esteem. If you are putting your wins on what she is doing, she's always up and down, and so you will be up and down, and you will be so reactive to her, and she will lose respect. And if you need more help, you can set up a free call with our team down below to make sure you're fully committed to doing something different. It's not just free advice. So if you are wanting to take action to save the marriage, set up a call with our team. Here's a video of a man that saved his marriage when all hope seemed lost, so you can watch that as well. And the testing video on the other side. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.